Today we're going to talk about Jacob and Esau, who were twin brothers who were very important to the history of salvation. But we're going to go back a little ways to Abraham when his wife Sarah died. When his wife Sarah died, he wanted to have a very special burial place for her because he loved her very much. And he went to a man who owned a piece of land that had a cave. So he said to the man, he said, "How much money should I give you so that I can buy this cave for my wife who has died?" And the man said, "Oh, you don't need to give me any money at all. Just bury your wife, bury your dead." And Abraham said, "No, I would never think of burying my precious beloved wife in a piece of land that I did not pay for myself. So I want you to tell me, how much does it cost for the land?" And the man said, "No, no, no. Just bury your dead." So they went back and forth like that until finally the man said, "Here's the price." And he told him exactly how many shekels he would need for the price of the land. Well, they all knew that Abraham was going to pay for it, but it was just this back and forth polite way of bargaining that is very typical of some of the bargaining you find in the Bible. And we'll see a little bit more of that kind of conversation as we go along. Now, Rebekah was especially fond of Jacob, and Isaac was especially fond of Esau. Esau was a person who went out in the fields, and he would hunt game, and he would make a dinner for his father that was just exactly the way his father liked it. But then Jacob was a person who would stay near the house in a tent. By the way, tent and tienda are the same word in Spanish. And tienda is the same word as store. So a house, a store, a tent, those things, those kinds of places were places that Jacob liked to stay. One day, Esau came home, and he was very hungry. And he said, "Could you give me some of those lentils that you're eating? I'm very famished." Lentils are kind of very small bean. And Jacob saw a deal here. He thought, well, I could just give him some lentils because he's my brother. Or I could charge him some money for the lentils. Or I could make a really good deal for myself. And he says, "Sure, you can have some lentils. All I need is for you to give me your birthright." The birthright, that was amazing, because that's a very special blessing that belongs only to the first child. So Esau must have been pretty hungry because he says, "Well, I'm so starving. What do I care about a birthright? Just go ahead and give me the lentils." So he despised, the Bible says he despised his birthright for a bowl of lentils. Later on, Isaac was suffering from his last illness, and he was very old, he was weak, and he couldn't see very well. So he asked his son Esau to go out into the field and find good game and then cook it just the way he liked it, and he would wait for him. Well, in the meantime, Rebekah, who was always trying to put Jacob ahead of Esau, she said, hey, let's cook some game ourselves and make it just the way your father likes it. And then you can pretend to be Esau and you can get his father's blessing. Well, father's blessing is pretty special. Not just the birthright, but also the father's blessing was very special. And well, Jacob had actually kind of tricked Esau into selling his birthright for a bowl of lentils, but this was different. This was stealing. He said, "Sure, let's do it." And so mother and son, Rebekah and Jacob, figured out a way to trick Isaac into giving him Esau's blessing. So their food was done a little bit sooner than Esau's food was done, and they brought it to his father. And Rebekah had put goat skin on his arms, and she had just made him kind of look and sound, look, he didn't sound like, but kind of look like and feel like Esau. Esau was a hairy man. She tried to make him feel a little more hairy. So Jacob came in, and Isaac wasn't sure what was going on. He said, "It's the voice of Jacob, but it feels like the hairy arms of my son Esau." So he ate the yummy food, and then he gave him a beautiful blessing. Well, what do you know? Pretty soon, Esau comes in with the game that he has prepared, and his father said, "Oh no, I've given away your blessing." And Esau said, "Isn't there any blessing for me?" He says, "No, I've given it away to Jacob, and he will be blessed." Esau and Jacob did not see eye to eye on whether this was okay to do. So Esau was just about mad enough to, you remember that Cain killed Abel. Well, Esau was just about that mad. And he said, "You are not safe living with me anymore." And Jacob said to his mom, "I had better run away." So Jacob ran away from Esau, and he did not see him again for many, many years. And when he was asleep, he used a stone for a pillow, and he was sound asleep, running away from his brother, and he suddenly saw a vision of angels on a ladder descending and ascending. But that's not the way the Bible says. They say ascending and descending. So the angels didn't start at the top and come down from heaven. They started at earth and went up to heaven. And so they'd come down and look at Jacob. They would go up into heaven. They would come down and look at Jacob, go up to heaven. And it went on like that all night long. And that was a beautiful dream of angels. And a lot of songs have been written about those angels. So Jacob felt that with that dream that his journey away from his very angry brother was going to be blessed. And sure enough, he got to the land of Ur, and he didn't know it was his uncle's land, and he saw some girls near a well. Well, quite often when you see girls and guys near a well, it might mean that there's going to be a marriage coming before you know it. And so Leah was the oldest girl. Rachel was the second girl. Now remember, Jacob is the second child. Rachel is the second child. I'm a second child. All of you second children out there, we know how special we are. So he helped the girls, get the stone away from the well, and he got to know the girls, and then he went and ate dinner with them. Well, he just fell head over heels in love with Rachel. He just thought Rachel was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen in his life, and he told her father, Nahor, that he would work 7 years for her. And the Bible says that the 7 years went so fast, it was just like one day. He was so much in love with Rachel. So, as we know, people like to play tricks on each other in our Bible stories. And so Nahor, you know what? His name wasn't Nahor. I have led you astray. His name was Laban. Okay, so we're coming along with the right name here. So Nahor was the father of Rebekah, and Laban is the father of Rachel. We want to get this straight. So when Jacob had his wedding, he thought that he was marrying Rachel, but remember, in those days, everybody had a veil. All the girls had a veil on, and he found out that he was marrying Leah. That wasn't his idea at all. He didn't want to marry Leah. He wanted to marry Rachel. And the father said, "Well, I know you wanted to marry Rachel. You can marry Rachel too," because having more than one wife was not a problem in his culture. So he said, "Just wait a month, till Leah has had time to spend with you, and then you can marry Rachel. And so, but you have to work for me another 7 years." So he married Rachel again right away. So Leah and Rachel lived in the same house with Jacob, and they had 2 servant girls who also became Jacob's wives. Very complicated story. So then, because he loved Rachel so much, he put up with these other women, and they had a lot of children. There were actually 10 children born to Leah and the 2 servant girls. But Rachel had no child. And that's a very sad thing. Well, Rachel did have a child finally, and his name was Joseph. She was so excited to have a little boy named Joseph. We're going to learn a lot about Joseph because Joseph is a huge part of our salvation history. And then she had a son named Benjamin. We'll hear more about Benjamin a little bit later. He's a huge part of our salvation history also. So, troubles with troubles with Laban. I'm going to try to get this right. Troubles with Laban. Jacob had troubles with Laban because they were all shepherds and they all had different servants. And Laban kept changing the wages of Jacob's business and the wages of Jacob's business and the wages of his servants. And so Jacob had about enough of this, and he says, I'm just going to run away. So second time in his life that he ran away from Laban. Laban caught up with him because he wanted to at least say goodbye to his children, and he wanted to bless them before they left. So where did Jacob go? Well, he went back toward the land of his father Isaac. But first he had a dream. And he dreamed that there was someone struggling with him. It was more than a dream. Someone struggled with him all night long and had put his hip out of socket. And that is apparently the reason that people who were of the Jewish faith did not eat meat from the hip socket, because Jacob had had his hip socket thrown out. And after that, his name was renamed. Instead of being Jacob, he was Israel, which is a person who has struggled with God. So as he was running away with his family and trying to get back to the land of his father, someone said, "Your brother Esau is on the way, with 400 men." Well, that might have made Jacob pretty nervous. So he thought, how am I going to do this? I need to make a good impression on Esau. It never would have occurred to Jacob that Esau would just simply forgive him for what he had done. That did not enter into Jacob's mind. So he said, I better make a good impression. So he said, every few hundred feet, we're going to leave some gifts, some carvings or some sheep or some food. We're going to leave some gifts. And so when Esau finally caught up with Jacob, he said, what are all these little mounds of gifts that I see? And Jacob said, oh, it's because just seeing your face makes me look like, I think of you as the face of an angel. And Jacob was trying to butter him up as much as he could because he was afraid that after his major crimes of the past that Esau would never forgive him. But Esau did forgive him. And that's something that we need to learn from, is that no matter how much we've been hurt or how much we've been disrespected by someone, we can always forgive them and our life is much better. And he said, Esau said, I don't need any of these gifts of yours, Jacob. Just to see you and to be in the same place with you. Why don't you come over to my place and we can share the land together? But Jacob said, well, I'll catch up with you, which really meant that thank you for forgiving me, but I still think that we should probably stay as far apart as we can. And so they reconciled, but they decided not to live in the same area. And Esau was a very rich man, and he went on to found his own nation of people. And over the years, there have been lots and lots of discussion about what was the nation of people that Esau founded. But we will really never quite get that settled until we get to heaven. Now, I hear my timer going off, which is almost amazing, because that gives me time to say that the 11th son of Jacob, who was renamed Israel, is Joseph. And we must find out more about Joseph. So I look forward to hearing your happy voices when we all get back to church together. But for now, I look forward to seeing you to talk about Joseph. So thank you for joining me.